Okay, so this is live. I am doing some voiceover work for a client, and I thought I'd do some voiceover lines. The lighting is awful. I apologize. Ugh, Jesus. Hmm. Well, maybe that'll work for now. It's just a test, right? Right. Check, check. 1, 2. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Automatic detectors. Automatic detectors are found in fixed systems, which are primarily electrical in nature. The two basic methods of detecting fires is through the presence of smoke or heat. Smoke sensing detectors detect the particles of combustion, and heat sensing detectors detect the thermal byproduct of combustion. Industrial applications or hazards with high value assets may utilize flame detectors. Flame detectors are higher in cost, but can detect a spark or flame the instant it forms. Aluminum, linoleum. The most common storage vessel utilized in fire suppression is the cylinder. Cylinders used for fire protection are painted red. Cylinders for portable systems will be small and relatively lightweight to carry. Cylinders for fixed systems will be large and permanently installed. Cylinders used to store dry chemical are pressurized with nitrogen or compressed air. The dry chemical is suspended in the gas and expelled when the vessel is emptied. Portable cylinders will use a handle that is squeezed to open a valve. Fixed systems will utilize an electronic solenoid to open the valve on the cylinder. Piping used to deliver dry chemical is typical of fixed fire suppression systems. The piping is required to be capable of withstanding the pressures of the expellant gas and be resistant to fire. Similar to wet systems or clean agents, the dry chemical will have flow characteristics. These characters will vary from agent to manufacturer, and the designer of the system should be factory trained. NFPA codes and standards governing dry chemical systems do provide design guidance and depend on the knowledge of the user. Portable extinguishers have very few moving parts and lack the variety of fittings found in fixed systems. The valve assembly that releases the agent screws on to the cylinder. These fittings will be a fixed size and provided by the manufacturer. Fixed dry chemical systems Fixed dry chemical systems will require fittings of varying size and function depending on the area protected. The system designer will generate a materials list. The system designer will generate a materials list as part of the design, including fittings. The system designer will generate a materials list as part of the design. Shit. The system designer will generate a materials list as part of the design, including fittings. In all fire suppression systems, the fittings will be rated for use in the application. Yeah, that'll work. Click each button on the left to learn more about fixed systems. Fixed systems will deliver a dry chemical agent by a system of piping and fixed nozzles, or a hose reel system that is permanently attached. Fixed systems are designed to project shit. Fixed systems are designed to protect a limited area or a recognized hazard. Prior to the standard developed by the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, no dry chemical system had ever been evaluated. No dry chemical system had ever been evaluated by a recognized testing facility. Underwriters Laboratories, or UL, tested and listed the first dry chemical system for use per NFPA. Underwriters Laboratories, or UL, tested and listed the first dry chemical system for use per NFPA standards. Fixed systems are governed by NFPA 17, Standard for Dry Chemical Extinguishing Systems. NFPA 17, as well as all NFPA codes and standards, will list the minimum requirements. The code allows for a higher level of protection and alternate means to meet requirements. However, documentation would be required to be provided to the AHJ for approval. NFPA 17 requirements will include limitations of the system, the safety of personnel, system operation, the dry chemical and how it is delivered. NFPA 17 assumes the technician and designer are experienced in dry chemical suppression systems and factory trained by the equipment manufacturer. All agents used to extinguish fires have limitations. All agents used to extinguish fires have limitations. Okay, got it. All agents used to extinguish fires have limitations and exhibit varying characteristics that are considered a little bit too mechanical here. Sometimes it's hard to keep scripts like these moving along in an interesting way. For me, it is anyways. All right. All agents used to extinguish fires have limitations and exhibit varying characteristics that are considered when they are selected. Dry chemicals are used to extinguish fires in commercial cooking, electrical equipment, textile operations, and for flammable gases and liquids, as well as ordinary combustibles. Dry chemical agents are not used on electronics or computer equipment since the residue will corrode components. Dry chemical is also not effective in extinguishing fires where the fuel produces its own oxygen, nor combustible metals and deep-seated fires not reached. Dry chemical is also not effective in extinguishing fires where the fuel produces its own oxygen, nor combustible metals and deep-seated fires not reachable by the powder. And some of these sentences are a real doozy. The predominant means to extinguish combustion is by smothering the fire or removing oxygen. Dry chemical agents perform this function by coating the fuel. Although most dry chemical agents are non-toxic, personnel should not be in an area where large quantities are discharged. NFPA 17 recommends items to be considered to provide safety to personnel. NFPA 17 recommends items to be considered to provide safety to personnel, including agent discharge alarms, training, warning signage, eye wash stations, and PPE. Evacuation and rescue procedures must also be in place in case of exposure. Fixed dry chemical systems are required to have both a manual and automatic means to evacuate. Nope. Fixed dry chemical systems are required to have both a manual and automatic means to activate. Automatic means are typically initiated by heat or smoke detectors. Manual stations are located similar to pull stations at the exit of the protected space. The automatic and manual means to activate the system must be separate to prevent a single failure from compromising the system. Hose and reel systems are exempt from this NFPA requirement. When a building fire alarm is present, the activation of a dry chemical system will send an alarm signal to the control panel. Nobody says control panel. Fixed dry chemical systems may protect one or more hazards and operate independently. To ensure enough dry chemical is available, the system must be capable of discharging all at once. A reserve supply of dry chemical may also be required to be on site. The dry chemical reserve requirements The dry chemical reserve requirements vary depending on facility operation. If the equipment cannot be shut down until the agent is recharged, a reserve cylinder is required. For continuous operation, the piping for the primary and reserve supply is connected, but isolated with valves. Dry chemical containers should be located to protect from weather, heat, and humidity. Humidity. Aluminum, linoleum, aluminum, linoleum, aluminum, linoleum, aluminum, linoleum, aluminum, linoleum. Unique New York. Unique New York. Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Did Peter Piper pick a peck of pickled peppers? Because if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's a peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Son of a bitch. Ooh, what? All right. The requirements for piping found in NFPA 17 generally rely on the workmanship and expertise of the system designer. Piping that delivers dry chemical will have the least turns possible to help the agent flow. That makes sense, less restriction. You have a 90-degree elbow, messes shit up, puts back pressure on the line. To help the agent flow, turns, oh shit, I just said this. I swear I didn't just read this. All right. Turns create resistance, and more expellant gas is needed to deliver the chemical. I've been expelling gas all night. Seriously. Turns create resistance, and more expellant gas is needed to deliver the chemical. Piping should be secured and routed in a manner that protects it from damage. Piping is cleaned before assembly and again before nozzles are installed by purging the system with gas. This prevents debris from clogging nozzles that deliver dry chemical. If it was my script, I would have put that deliver the dry chemical, but what are you going to do? Let me see here. Is anyone even watching? No, no one's watching. Wow, interesting. Okay, well. Good evening and welcome. I wish I could show the non-existent viewers my laptop here. I have a big monitor here, and that's basically what I'm reading the script off of. And then to my left, your right, is my laptop, which is running the recording software and doing some double duty as well, because it's also got the webcam going, its microphone, and it's kind of putting it all together as we proceed. So this is a long voiceover, 101 pages that I'm doing for a client. And once the voiceover part is done, then I go back in and clean up all the problems with it, mistakes I've made, flubs as they call in the industry. I remove unnecessary or too much, I remove breaths, basically. Now, some breaths are okay, but if they're too loud, then they can be a distraction. I have some clients that don't even want any breaths at all. A lot of commercials, they don't want to hear that shit, right? I'm not a great voiceover guy, but I do get some business from time to time, and I like doing it, you know, and that's basically my story. This is my studio. As you can see, there's no real soundproofing. Now, around here, everywhere you can't see pretty much, I do have a few curtains so that it absorbs some of the sound, gets rid of some of the reflection. But I really depend on just the greatness of like this mic right here, Lecture Voice RE20, because it absorbs sound, it seems. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, basically what I'm saying is that this microphone here is very forgiving of any reflections that might be bouncing off the wall of my voice. The air conditioner is going right now. You can't hear it, probably, through this microphone. Maybe you can through that. I have to remember that you're not listening to this. You're listening to my little cheap webcam. Okay, going to continue. Click each button on the right to learn more on fixed systems. Click each button on the right to learn more on fixed systems. NFPA 17 addresses a variety of fixed dry chemical system types. The requirements cover systems that are permanently installed and deliver dry chemical using a system of piping or hoses. A pressurized gas or expellant is used to move the powder through the system. Fixed systems are found in kitchen hoods over fryers and griddles, in paint booths, and marine machinery spaces. NFPA 17 governs total flooding and local applications, hose and reel systems, and pre-engineered systems that deliver a dry chemical agent. The key component in a total flooding application is that the hazard be permanently enclosed. The enclosure must be sealed to prevent leakage and hold the agent. The designer of the system determines the volume of the space and how much dry chemical is needed to fill it. Typically, the suppression system will interfere with other systems to close dampers or shut down ventilation. These functions will seal the enclosure and prevent oxygen from feeding the fire. Total flooding systems may also be pre-engineered. Local dry chemical applications are used when it is not practical to enclose the hazard. Local applications are typically found indoors or outdoors if the hazard is partially enclosed. To prevent a fire from spreading, the hazard should be separated. From other combustibles. Local applications are found in kitchens and industrial ovens. For flammable liquid hazards, the nozzles should be located and aimed to avoid splashing when activated. The system designer will determine the amount of agent and duration of discharge to suppress the fire. Hand hose line systems offer the portability of a fire extinguisher with the advantage of a fixed supply of dry chemical. If a fixed system is also used to protect a hazard, the dry chemical supply must be separate. Hand hose line systems should have enough dry chemical to operate. Hand hose line systems should have enough dry chemical to operate for at least 30 seconds continuously. If multiple hose lines protect a single hazard, each line must be capable of reaching it. The amount of dry chemical needed should allow for all stations to operate at once. NFPA 17 requires those who operate hose line systems be properly trained. Okay, good. Pre-engineered systems are designed for a particular hazard where the parameters remain constant. One design can be used for an unlimited number of installations. All components used in the system must be listed for use and used accordingly to the requirements in the manufacturer's published guidelines. Pre-engineered systems are found in total flooding systems, local applications, hand hose line systems, or a combination of the systems. A common pre-engineered system is a kitchen hood suppression system. NFPA 17 requires plans for fixed dry chemical systems be prepared by a person who is qualified and trained on the particular system. Once the plans are approved by the authority having jurisdiction, or AHJ for short, the system can be installed. Fixed systems are tested and approved by the AHJ before they are allowed to be put into service. Typically, the AHJ will allow for a small amount of the dry chemical to be discharged during an operation test. Systems that are modified will require an additional acceptance test. Systems that are modified will require an additional acceptance test. The building owner is responsible for maintaining the dry chemical system and having it inspected. The building owner is responsible for maintaining the dry chemical system and having it inspected. NFPA 17 will list how often systems are to be inspected and tested. NFPA will also refer to the documents published by the manufacturer. Technicians that the owner retains to service and maintain the system are required to be trained by the manufacturer. Any training or certifications must be acceptable to the AHJ. Fixed systems are required to be serviced and Fixed systems are required to be serviced after activation or on a semi-annual basis. All of YouTube and nobody's watching. Still though, it's kind of cool. If I did this on Facebook, people would watch. And that's probably why I'm not doing it on Facebook. Semi-annual. Fixed systems are required to be serviced after activation or on a semi-annual basis. Dry chemical is used as a fire suppression in portable extinguishers. NFPA 10, standard for portable fire extinguishers, governs the use of... All right, you know what? I'm done. It's too much pressure. Click each button on the left to learn more about fixed systems. Fixed systems will deliver only addresses washed from the skin. A common dry chemical is ammonium by a system of piping and fixed nozzles, or a closed reel system that is permanently attached. Fixed systems are designed to Fixed systems are designed to protect a limited area or a recognized hazard. Prior to the standard developed by the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, no dry chemical system had ever been evaluated. By a recognized testing facility. Underwriters Laboratories, or UL, tested and listed the first dry chemical system for use per Underwriters Laboratories, or UL, tested and listed the first dry chemical system for use per NFPA standards. Fixed systems are governed by NFPA. Other portable extinguishers found in the code contain water. Other portable extinguishers found in the code can facilitate and communicate the location to employees. STSs are typically placed in 3-ring binders and stored in a document library. STSs contain information such as PPE required, cleanup procedures, and Not great. All right. End the stream. Yes.